Hey, yo, what up guys, it's Dark Fire. I'm here today to bring to you a brand new video. I have a question. Do you have a game that you would consider to be a part of you? A game you would consider to be a part of your identity? If the answer is yes, then most likely it was a video game that you played probably a lot when you were a child. You know, maybe you didn't have all that much money, or your parents didn't approve of gaming, so you just played this one game over and over and over again. Or maybe you played it so much because you just loved it so much and it was so fun. But whatever the reason, it became a part of you. For me, whether it was a coincidence or not, most of these games I hadn't beaten, ever. So, about 3 years ago, I decided to track down and purchase all these games that I considered a part of my identity, and I was going to finally complete every single one of them. Unfortunately, I didn't get all that much footage of me doing this for my channel. It was just kind of more of a personal goal, a personal quest. Some of these games included Scooby-Doo Classic Creep Capers and Donkey Kong Country 2, which was definitely a difficult one, as well as Digimon World 3. All games I felt represented a large part of who I was. And so I figured that today I would actually take a look at another game, and this time I'd get some footage of it and upload it for viewing pleasure. Plus, this is a great way for me to keep track of things because I have a bad memory, so there's that too. Anyways, without further ado, the game I'm going to be playing today is Willie Beamish. The game's actual name is The Adventures of Willie Beamish, but I always shorten it to Willie Beamish just because. What's that I hear you saying? You've never heard of this game before? Well, I'm honestly not all that surprised. The Adventures of Willie Beamish is a graphic adventure game developed by Dynamax and published in 1991 by Sierra Online. The player takes on the role of 9-year-old Willie Beamish in a game that somewhat parodies the adventure genre. And just so that way we're clear, I took this straight from Google. This is one of those games that literally appeared in my house one day. My dad, he was always kind of a little bit of a gamer himself, and one day it just showed up. I guess he got it while I was sleeping or something, and it just kind of sat there with the rest of our Sega CD games. That's right, this game came out in 1991 and it is a Sega CD game. The only other way to play this game is on PC. It is a point-and-click adventure game, and it is one of the few point-and-click adventure games I've ever actually played in my life. That's right, if you're into Monkey Island content, my channel might not be the one for you. But as for Willie Beamish, the game itself, I have never completed this game, and as I'm talking right now, as I'm recording this, I still have not completed this game. I'm actually doing the first part of this video where I haven't played it yet, and then I'm going to do the second part of this video after I completed it. No. So, what can I tell you about the game? Just because I haven't completed it doesn't mean I haven't played it before, obviously. And the story is about Willie Beamish, a 9-year-old kid who gets in trouble on his first day, or on his last day before summer, because a frog jumps on his principal's head, and he gets detention. And he ends up finding out that he needs to get home as quickly as possible, get out of detention basically, before his parents get home and see his report card that got sent home in the mail. So he needs to find a way to break out of detention and be able to enjoy his summer. Now that's a very quick summary, and I'm positive that that does not summarize the plot, because I'm not sure if I ever got around to the main core of the plot. I remember that there's alluding to like something terrible is happening in this town, but I couldn't tell you what it was because I never got that far. So it'll be interesting to see what actually transpires in the game. So I guess without further ado, I'm gonna get on to it. Okay, first off, there will be spoilers. So, if you haven't played this 30-year-old game yet, now's the time. Wow. Oh, wow. I understand why I never completed it when I was younger. The load times are absolutely the worst thing on the planet. I swear to you, I've never played a game with load times as bad as this game. And I've beaten Sonic 06. How are the load times bad? Well, I'm glad you asked. Imagine a point-and-click adventure game where every time you clicked on anything, no matter what it was, it took 10 seconds to load. Yes, it's really that bad. And when I say anything, I mean anything. Doors, items, characters' dialogue options. If you need to pick up an item and place it at a different point, that is 10 seconds for picking the item up, another 10 seconds for opening up your inventory, another 10 seconds for grabbing it out of your inventory, and another 10 seconds for actually placing it down. And then there's another 10 seconds for it to load the outcome. Here's a quick example. I heard somewhere that it's a lot nicer to watch this game than it is to actually play the game, because when you're watching it, the load times aren't that big a deal, and when you're playing the game, the load times are agony, and I will tell you from first-hand experience that this is true. When I first started playing the game, these load times were kind of cute. They added a kind of charm to the game that I wasn't expecting. But at some point, after Willie Beamish gets home on the first day, the load times start to wear thin. Oh, real quick, before I forget, I played this game on an emulator. I own the game physically for the 32X, and I own a working 32X, but I didn't want to have to get it out and hook it up, so I just downloaded the game instead. So technically, it's not piracy. That being said, I think emulation and piracy are fine when it comes to video games that haven't come out in 20 years. That being said, it turns out this game got re-released on GOG in 2017, but that is for computers, which apparently doesn't suffer from the insane load times and still has the ending. Yes, you heard me right, the 32X version doesn't have the actual ending. Not to say it doesn't have a ending, just not the full one. Something I didn't know when I went into this game. And it's at this point that I think is a perfect time to go into the story of the game. So, as soon as you boot up the game, you're introduced to an opening video full of lies. Don't get me wrong, the soundtrack sounds amazing, but you can't even do 95% of the things shown in these pictures. If you could, I would totally plant that kick me sign on the coach, cause that dude is kind of a dick. Like, take this picture for example. As far as I'm aware, Jason never even shows up in the game. Apart from here, of course. But of course, that's all before you even push start to begin the game. Once the game actually does start, we're introduced to the main character of Willie Beamish. His name is Frank. No, of course not. His name is obviously Willie, and his story begins on the last day of school while the principal is giving a lecture to the entire student body. Willie's frog jumps out of his backpack and lands on the principal's head, revealing that the principal wears a wig and causing Willie to get detention. Here is where the game starts, as you and the rest of the students are getting lectured by Miss Glass. This part of the game is kind of like a tutorial, and I say kind of because after you finally get out of the school, all of your items get reset and you can't come back to the school, like ever. While you're here, there are many things that you can do that would instantly get you a game over. It kind of teaches you the consequences of your actions. That being said, I love the beginning part of this game. There are so many ways that you can accomplish your main objective, which is just trying to leave the school. If you want, you can wait in the classroom for the teacher to finally let you leave, or with a little bit of creativity, you can get out early, which has benefits later on in the game. So, after you finally are able to leave the school, you can show up at your house and retrieve your report card. or miss it if you didn't leave early. It's at this point that you can go upstairs to your bedroom and play one of the greatest minigames ever created by man. It's called Super Space Canucks. This minigame is only available on the Sega 32X. This minigame is a mix of Space Invaders, Tetris, and the power-ups from Contra. When I was a kid, I used to play this game to get to the minigame, not realizing that there was a save feature, so I played the tutorial over and over and over again just to get to this minigame. Why didn't I know that there was a save feature in this game? Well, that's because the save feature is almost impossible to notice for some reason. I was about halfway through the game on this current playthrough before I remembered that this game had a save feature, even though I knew that before I even turned the game on. And if you do actually click on the save icon, you get this sound effect, which immediately makes me think that I can't save the game at this point. Seriously though, if anyone who's watching this video has any programming skills, if you could send me, like, Super Space Canucks as an app for my phone, that would be absolutely amazing. It is $1 billion idea. Somebody do it, please. So, after a while of you playing Super Space Canucks, you get auto-kicked off the game because your family got home. So, you go down to the kitchen where your mother tells you that your sister is driving her crazy. So, you get a chance to take her outside, and this is where you're given your first good, bad dialogue option. If you do something good, either nothing happens, or this little thermostat gauge goes down. If you do something bad, the thermostat gauge almost always goes up. Now, when I first started playing this game, I wasn't able to read the thermostat gauge, because it popped up on screen so quickly. But I decided that I was going to do a good guy playthrough. I thought this game had consequences, along the lines of Fable or Infamous, but I was totally wrong. It's just a meter that tracks how good you are, and if you're too bad, you go straight to military school, also known as a game over. There are a lot of game over screens in this game, actually. Some of them are pretty messed up, like this one of Willie Beamish drowning. Or this one of Willie getting dragged off by a gang from West Side Story, which I just so happen to have lots of footage of for, you know, some reason. So, anyways, Willie heads back into the house and the family sits down, getting ready for dinner. His mom tells the family that the dad just got a big promotion today, so to make sure to give him lots of congratulations. So, as the dad gets home and sits down for dinner, the whole family congratulates him on his brand new promotion, when he reveals that he didn't get the promotion but in fact got fired. The entire family, being some of the most selfish people I've ever seen, all start wondering if they can still afford the luxurious items that they have or want. It was at this point in the game I started to realize that the mom doesn't work, and the dad does. And they have 3 kids in a giant 2-story, 4-bedroom house with an attic and a giant backyard. God, I miss the 90s. So, at this point, I was given the option to hand over the report card from the school that I was able to get because I made it home before anyone else did, which I chose to do because I still thought I was trying to do a good playthrough at this point. This caused George, Willie's dad, to lock up the Nintari, which Willie complains that he needs in order to practice for the upcoming Nintari Championship. I'm not entirely sure how actually choosing to give the report card to George affects the rest of the game, but I do think this may have changed something. Anyways, the scene then turns to the TV showing a news report about the plumbers going on strike, followed immediately by a Toot Sweet commercial, and then the dad lamenting how he wishes he could have invented something like Toot Sweet and how everybody uses it. We then cut to our 2 villains, Leona and Lewis, who are in a jacuzzi, so you definitely know that they're evil. Lewis, who is apparently the head of a plumbers union, is patting himself on the back about causing the strike, and Leona, the president of Toot Sweet, is talking about how she has created a new job position for someone to be their fall guy and take the blame, although we don't know what for yet. After this, I wandered around for a bit until the next morning, where you're having breakfast with your dad and little sister. When your dad mentions that he's looking through a newspaper trying to find a job opening, He then comes across the holy grail of job openings, and I'm going to just let this sink in for a second. You don't even need experience for this job. You could literally just call them up off the street and have a possibility of getting that position. God, I miss the 90s. So anyways, George, the dad, calls the ad and of course is directed to Leona, the president of Toot Suite. He aces the phone interview and is excited for his in-person interview when our attention becomes immediately directed towards the TV, where they're showing an ad for a frog jumping contest. And max prize of $2,500, the exact amount that Willie needs in order to go to the Nintari Championship. And how convenient is it that Willie just so happens to have a pet frog? So immediately after that commercial plays, there's another commercial by Toot Suite, explaining what Toot Suite actually is. Apparently, it is a delicious tasting non-sugar product that comes directly from recycled sludge, and apparently everybody loves it. After the commercial wraps up, you do a few chores for George to get your allowance, and then you head over to you and your friend's treehouse in order to meet up, where it gets revealed that Gina, one of your friends, has a new pet frog. You then have the option to, through a convoluted set of circumstances, try and convince her to help you with the frog jumping contest, because the female frog makes horny. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention, horny is the name of your frog. I know, this game is so mature. It's at this point in the game where you're given the option to save, and I want to point that out specifically for what happens next. You then head to the restaurant with your friends to munch down on some pizza that you guys so happen to have a free coupon for. So of course, the pizza's disgusting, causing Willie to fart in public, raising the ire of the school bully. Because of course, the school bully just so happens to be here at this restaurant at this time on a date. He threatens to punch you over accidentally letting one go, but you tell him that you're going to fart again, so he releases you to the bathroom. It's kinda weird. Once you make it to the bathroom, you're told by a painter not to use the last stall on the right, because he just painted it. And Willie asks him why he didn't put up a fresh paint sign. And he responds, I don't have one, so I used a no smoking sign instead. Again, I want to point this out because it's a little weird with what happens next. So, you take down the smoking sign, and the bully bursts in, and tells you that you ruined his date and he's pissed. So, you better give him something out of your backpack, or he's going to beat you up. No matter what you give him in your backpack, it's not going to be good enough. No matter what you have on you, there's only one thing that you can give him. Remember earlier when I said you could save at that point and to remember? Well, the reason is because a comic book that you absolutely need for this part gets set down in a place that's almost impossible to see, so it's incredibly easy to miss, and if you miss it, you'll have to restart your game, assuming, of course, you figured out what you missed. So you do it all over again. Head to the restaurant, eat bad pizza, fart in public, get threatened by a school bully, rush to the bathroom, get threatened again by a school bully, but this time, you give him the comic book. Remember the second thing I told you to remember? And yes, this is going on the test.
Willie Beamish? What did I just say?
Anyways, after you give him the comic book, you recommend that he uses the last stall on the right. He takes the comic book in the stall, and you bust out of there with your friends. And then, for some strange reason, it shows him exploding. Why? Is paint explosive? It would make sense if he just got paint all over himself, but no, he straight up explodes, and you never see him again. Willie Beamish kind of killed a guy. Oh, and it's at this point I want to point out that this is further than I've ever played before. Everything up until this point I had memorized from when I was a child, but from this point forward I started using a guide because of two reasons. One, I'm not used to point-and-click adventure games, and two, some of the logic in this game is batshit insane. So, anyways, I head over and get myself a lottery ticket. And I head home where I'm introduced to Willie's new babysitter. They sit down, have dinner, when all of a sudden, the babysitter turns into a giant bat. You know, as they do. This part is very hard and very complicated, and it's basically a boss fight for point-and-click adventure games. What you have to do is you have to go upstairs to your sister's room, grab a mouse of all things that the cat is playing with, run downstairs to the living room, set the mouse on a stool, and when the bat flies down for the mouse, suck it up with the vacuum cleaner. On a time limit, with so many load screens. So you wake up and it turns out that it was all a nightmare, and it's implied that the babysitter part was real, but not the bat part. The game then shows Willie's dad, George, doing the interview and getting the job. After that, you need to head to the pier, fish a ferry token out of the fountain, and take the ferry to the other side of the river, where you encounter a Chinese family using their daughter as an interpreter, who misinterprets almost everything you say. You help them out by taking a family photo of them for their vacation. They then reward you by giving you a smoke bomb and a shuriken as thanks. Now, I wasn't really planning on bringing this up, but since this family ends up coming back, I might as well say something about it. I don't think this family is depicted as being racist. Although I do think that a lot of people today would say that they're being depicted as racist, I don't think they are, and this is why. Because I don't think that there was hate behind the intention of these characters. I think they were just meant to be a funny stereotype. Today, it's seen as racist, but honestly, I don't see it because I don't see it being hateful or angry. Anyways, I'm gonna move back to my review and try and stay out of this kind of stuff in the future. You then go your separate ways from the family, and you head to the frog jumping tournament sign-in booth to sign in your frog Horny. Jesus, this game is monotonous. You even have to sign in the damn jumping competition. I have no idea what would happen if you somehow missed signing up at this booth. Anyways, you can then head over to the local 409 building where you get to see a cutscene of Lewis antagonizing the plumbers to go on strike. I then headed over to the Golden Bowl bar because if I wouldn't have headed over to this specific bar, then I would have instantly gotten a game over for no reason after a certain amount of time had passed. So I head to the bar and I come across the reason for that said game over. The Crepes, or as one commenter called them, the West Side Gang, which is what I will be calling them for the remainder of this video, because it's hilarious. So, the big burly bouncer tells you that he can't help you, and the Crepes seem very pissed off that you're on their turf. The bouncer says the best he can do is this, and he throws you a monkey wrench. Now, I just want to point out that this part in the game is very, very hard. So hard, in fact, that at this point I actually lost all my save data because I saved over my save state that I was using on my emulator. Because I kept trying to save at the perfect point that would help me the most. Instead, it screwed me the most, and the only previous save point I had was all the way back after you first got out of school, so I had a lot of catching up to do. It was at that point I quickly located the fast forward button, so I would no longer have to deal with those 10-second loading times, and from that point forward, I would use it every once in a while, even after I got past this part. Thank God I chose to emulate this game, as opposed to playing it on the original hardware. God bless save states and fast forwarding. So, anyways, what you're supposed to do here is throw the smoke bomb down immediately, but not too immediately, and then quickly go into your inventory and grab the monkey wrench, and use it on the fire hydrant, and then book it the hell out of there. You then head back to the Toot Sweet Frog Jumping Contest sign-up booth and come across the Asian family again. After you speak to them, choose one of the two selectable options. The Chinese family will then turn into ninjas and beat the hell out of the Crepes. You will then go out to dinner with the family, and they will then drop you off at home where you head back to bed and start off with the fourth and final day. Willie comes downstairs to find his sister dressed as a punk rocker, and apparently all of the water pipes are spewing brown sewage, and George is trying to get ready for his first day at Toot Sweet. Meanwhile, Leona is doing an evil monologue to herself about how people are to be used. George steps outside and gets swarmed by reporters, all wanting a quote on what Toot Sweet is going to do about the plumber strike. Apparently, Toot Sweet is made from sewage, and without the plumbers, they can't get the sewage they need, which is absurd to me, because if anyone just turns on their faucet, the only thing that comes out seems to be sewage. Anyways, it then cuts to another cutscene of Leona reaffirming that George is going to be their patsy. You then head back over to the ferry and head across the river for the frog jumping tournament, and even get a chance to participate in it with possible options that you can do to increase or decrease your chance of winning. The problem is, I don't think that the 32X version is actually possible to win. That's right, I said that the tournament the entire game has been building up might be impossible to win. Now, I can't guarantee this, but I've never seen anyone online with footage of them winning the tournament. So, I also have another piece of evidence, but I'll wait until the end. So anyways, after the tournament, Horny decides to run away and hop into the Toot Sweet building, where Willie follows. And overhears a conversation with his dad and Leona about Leona wanting George to lie to everyone and tell them that everything is fine and not to worry about the plumber strike or the sewage shortage, which George is opposed to. Willie then immediately gets caught by a security guard and taken to the security guard's office, where Willie has to use his necklace and key to hypnotize the guard so he can escape. Remember when I said that some of the logic in this game was batshit insane? This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Willie finds out that all the frogs in the building and at the tournament got rounded up and were sent to Leona's mansion. You think someone would have said, hey, don't take my frog, but I guess not. So, Willie steals a jet ski since the ferry is closed and heads for said mansion. And upon entering, you come across a parrot, who pretty much fills in all the missing holes of the story. So apparently, Toot Sweet was invented by a man named Harry, who died, and left Toot Sweet to Leona. But not the sludge works. That turns the sludge into the Toot Sweet. I know it's a little confusing, it's both the name of the sugar-like substance and the company itself. Anyways, apparently, in Harry's will, if the sludge works shuts down for any reason whatsoever, ownership goes straight to Leona, which would explain why she wanted Lewis to start a strike in the first place, but it's an incredibly odd addition to a will. After you finish this conversation with the parrot, you move to the next room to find... yeah... This is supposed to be a kid's game, right? I think even a child could figure out that that wasn't exactly appropriate.
We interrupt this broadcast to...
Oh, thank God. So anyways, George gets on TV and tells everyone that Leona and Lewis are conspiring together in order to cause the strike and to back up all the sewage. My question, though, is George never met Lewis and never had any conversations with Leona about him, so how does he even know that he's involved? But there's no time to ask about that, because Willie moves to the next room and finds a bunch of frogs hanging upside down, and it's your job to save them. I gotta admit, I've failed on this part several times, and I was surprised to find that the game over screen was straight up being drowned to death. Yeah, like drowning, the worst way to go, excluding the two other worst ways to go, fire and having to play the Willie Beamish 32X version. So, what you need to do here is get past the old lady, and in order to do that, you need to throw a chalice, sneak up behind her, pour some grease, move a pot, move back to the original area, climb into a vent, drop in front of her, scare her into the pot, causing her to fall over and then putting a helmet on her, so no one can hear her scream. Again, batshit insane logic. So, you free all the frogs, and as you're trying to leave, you get caught by Leona and Lewis, who tie you up and put you in a treasure chest underwater to die, as they explain that they're going to kidnap George and take him to the Sludgeworks factory. Just as this information is revealed, the frogs you rescued show up and pull the plug on the water's drain, allowing themselves to escape, but also Willie. Here's my question. Why is there a drain to the killer's death trap, and why does it lead to the river? Anyways, so to make a long story short, you escape and you head to the Sludgeworks, solve a bunch of overly complicated puzzles, and find that Lewis and Leona have hung your dad over a giant sludge toilet and are getting ready to flush him. So, you save your dad, flush the bad guys in the process, and your ghost grandpa shows up to congratulate you on your success. Wait a minute, what the hell was the point of Ghost Grandpa? Did he really need to even be in the game? It's not like he did anything. The most that ever happened is that he warned you that something was going on in the town. In my opinion, he was probably supposed to be a tutorial character, someone who helps you out in the beginning of the game to understand the rules and the way things work. It would make sense with him being a ghost who literally can't touch anything, and Willie being the only one who can see him, which is not explained, but they don't really do anything with him. He just kind of exists within the game. He's kind of prominent at the beginning for like a minute, and then again at the end, and then that's it. It's just kind of weird. So anyways, the water clears up, the town is saved, and Willie pops up on screen. Talks for about 2 minutes, and that's it. End of game. What? You thought there'd be more? Nope, not in the 32X version. As it turns out, the PC version has a cutscene where you go to the Nintari Championship using the money that you won from the Frog Tournament, and you win. But I don't think you can get to the Nintari Championship in the 32X version, because you can't beat the frog jumping contest. So basically, no matter what, I think you get a crappy ending. And that was the entire story of Willie Beamish. And whoo boy was it a doozy. Not overly complicated, but definitely overly drawn out. But what do you guys think? Did this make you want to try out Willie Beamish? Or do you maybe have a Willie Beamish story of your own when you were a kid? Let me know in the comments section below. Subscribe if you guys want more of my content, and thanks for watching. Peace. As a quick side note, I just realized that Willie Beamish has a terrible ending, and this video has a terrible ending. So, purpose! Bye!